Mole of Kintyre?
Yes, this is Mole of Kintyre.
Yeah, I thought so.
All right. If everybody's here, Slade, we're in Discord.
Yeah, I'm in the channel.
Oh, okay. I don't really like to use my
User
Discord
joined your
overlay.
channel.
Besides that, if you want to hop in Eden Editor on Arma and like follow along, you don't gotta, but you know, it'll allow you to actually explore the modules and stuff. There's not a lot to go over. It's very simple. This is definitely not going to be like the Zeus training, which was like 2.5 hours. It's going to be like 30 minutes to an hour, maybe.
Oh.
You got to have a little tenderness.
This shit should be super easy. So let's go over the UI first. This is pretty simple. We don't really have comps, so you don't really need to download anything. Technically, I'm trying to make a comp by just copying everything we make for the next this campaign into one nice little like cubby folder, and then we'll get to download that later on. But that's for when we end this campaign, and I can just copy paste everything on the map. So let's go over UI first. Pretty simple. This is what it looks like when you first spawn in. You know, you got your left side. Your left bracket here will be everything that's on the map. Obviously, it's going to be separated by. Let me close all these bullshit folders. So usually it'll be your factions. Then it'll be separated by empty. Empty will always be either vehicles or objects. There will always be these orangey, yellow-looking things. I'm colorblind. I don't know which color it is. Blue 4 will always be blue. Red 4 will always be red. A quick note. If you're ever placing down dudes in the editor, for any reason whatsoever, any dude you spawn will usually always spawn as... Well, usually when you spawn stuff, it'll have like a nice little symbol around it. It'll look like this. It'll have a red little symbol. That's a player. You don't want these unless you have the spawn comp, which we do all that by like a composition. So never ever ever place a dude down and leave the player SWAT on. But I'll get into all those details.
Guy already had it.
Usually they do. I think on this mission file we already have stuff set up. But UI stuff, your right side. This is going to be
multiplayer. They'll be playable instead of player.
Yeah, it's super annoying. But your right side UI. So your assets tab is where you'll usually be. You got objects, compositions, triggers, waypoints, systems, and markers. We don't really use triggers. We have a couple we use, but we don't use them too often. Waypoints, you'll never use this. Systems, you'll probably never use any of these for the most part. Markers, marker tab, you can just put stuff on the map. Like, I don't know.
I swear to God.
Yeah, you can put stuff on the map with markers. How you do it, you can just place one down. You can double click it. Variable name is just what's going to pop up on the left side. That's for you. The text is what they'll actually see on the map. If it's a Covenant objective, I usually like to make them civilian because it's got the nice purple. Covey.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. But yeah, they'll pop up on the map. That's it. It's pretty simple. Your objects tab, this will have all your factions, and this will have all your objects, your props. The compositions tab will have a bunch of pre-made shit that you shouldn't use because it's all shit. Keyword there. Most of these are pretty bad. I'll give a demonstration. We don't really have a UNSC fob here, but if you guys remember the fob we have in this campaign, it's like the little fob we always spawn at. It looks very different when you try to spawn any of these comps, because these are designed for vanilla Arma, and they look bad. They have HESCO barriers, which I personally don't like. They have a bunch of unnecessary bullshit, like ammo crates and such. In general, I recommend not to use the compositions from this tab. Then you got custom compositions. We don't really have any building comps except for Clover. He has one. But if you ever need a building comp, like I think I have Clover's.
I have
Yes.
a couple that aren't the best, but
Yeah, if you ever need to spawn a comp, like this is Clover's comps. He has a couple Covenant ones. You just spawn it in like that. Pretty simple.
Nice.
But usually, if you ever do objects, you'll just be in the objects tab. If you need to look for props, or vehicles, or infantry. I don't usually like to spawn infantry in editor because sometimes, or most times, it breaks. They'll do the funkiest stuff you've ever seen. I still remember an app where Griff had placed down dudes in the editor, and the dudes, when it came to op time, they wouldn't listen to any orders. When I turned their movement off, they would start flying around the map, and they were like phasing in and out of buildings, like sliding. They weren't like walking; they were just sliding around.
That's likely because Griff did something that he didn't know what it did to the AI. I do it all the time. It's just fine. It's fine.
I don't know. I personally don't trust it, but you know, you could do it. Clover says it's okay. So that's pretty much for this tab. This is just where you usually be spawning stuff, spawning markers, um, triggers if you need them, and systems if you need them. I don't think there's any systems here that we use besides the ones that come in the spawn composition. But the next step is this little tab up here. Now this little tab up here is pretty important because this is pretty much where a lot of your settings are. So the scenario tab, this one's pretty simple. You can make a new scenario. You can open one, save as. You can export it. So this is how you make it into a PBO. And a PBO is what goes on the server. Or by what goes on the server, I mean is what you sent to Clover to send to the server. So we share comps around by just, we save it and then we just make it like a RAR file wherever it's saved. But if you wanted to make it a PBO and actually have it like on the server, you need to export to multiplayer. And I'll get into that. I'll get into that right now so I don't forget. I'll stream my other screen.
you can edit in multiplayer too. And
Yeah.
then just go in and grab the file.
Give me just a second.
That's funny. I'd never just done it that way. I don't even know if I knew that was a thing.
So I'm not paying attention. Well, what are you guys talking about?
The PBO, how to make it a PBO.
Yeah. Well, I also come from the way my old unit ran things. They had like a bunch of code in the folder, so you had to do it the other way.
So when you save your file, and this is just for like if you need to share the file around people, usually it's going to be in this PC, Documents, Arma 3, whichever guy you are. I think I'm this one. And it's going to be wherever you saved it. Like, I always say save it in MP missions. What do I mean by that? When you select save as, you can save it as a mission, or you can save it as an MP mission. I recommend saving it as a MP mission. And that's what Clover recommends too. So when you save it, it'll pop up here. And how do we share it around? You don't just drag this to the Discord. What you do is, let's say I want this one. All you have to do is make it an archive, a RAR archive. Give it whatever your name you want, and press OK. And then you'll get one of these, and then you send this to the Discord. And that's how you do that. When it comes to exporting, such as when you want to make a PBO and send the final product off to be tested, that is going to be wherever your Arma is. So for me, it's going to be in my Q drive. And when you get to your Arma 3 folder, is going to be in MP missions. And this is all the PBOs. So you just send whatever PBO you have and send it to Clover. Or whoever else has access to the server box. So that's pretty simple. Next, you have merging. Now, merging is pretty cool. So, let's say, for instance, I have this airfield on one. So, let's say I have Bravo making this airfield, and I make, I don't know, a composition over here at Delta of like an AA piece, like this or something. We can both work on the file at the same time by using the merge system. So let's say Bravo completed the airfield and I completed all these AA pieces, but they're on separate files. On Bravo's file, he just has the airport. On my file, I only have the AA pieces. So, Bravo sends me his file, I merge both the files, and it's very clean too. It cleanly copies everything on the map into whatever mission you want. And that's how you can all work on a mission at the same time. Just keep in mind, Bravo forgot, no dissing him, but he did forget that when he was merging, he added the entire map to his mission file.
User joined your channel.
And so what happened was, since Bravo had the entire mission on his file, I also had the entire mission on my file. So everything duplicated itself. There was 2 of everything. So if there was a base right here, there'd be another base inside of this. Like, I'd move this, and there'd be another one inside of it, or something like that. Very bad. So when you're doing a merge, you only want to work on what you're told to work on. So usually when I'm doing a merge, I'll tell people what they need to work on. I'll tell you, don't spawn a spawn comp, don't mess with any of the settings, because there will always be a main mission file and then your mission file. The main mission file will have the attributes set up, it'll have the spawn comp down, it'll have the objective markers and everything. All your comp needs when you're making a merge is exactly what you're told. So if I told Bravo to only make Objective Alpha and only place stuff within the circle of Objective Alpha, that is exactly what I would want them to do. I don't want him to make a spawn comp somewhere over here. I don't want him to work outside of his area, because then, when I merge the file with my file, if he did stuff he wasn't supposed to, it might clip in certain areas. So if Bravo, for instance, didn't follow my orders, and he added a bunch of stuff on the airfield, there'd be like random buildings clipping into this, there'd be stuff floating, it would look really bad. So when it comes to merging, just work on what you're told, or else it might cause serious problems. I'm going to hammer that in because it did cause serious problems last Saturday. And that's merging. Merging's pretty simple. It's nothing too crazy. Statistics, this is very useful. You can see how much stuff is on the field. When it comes to AI, usually you don't want too many AI on the field. The playable ones you can't get away from, because that's always going to be on the field. And vehicles you can't get away from, because that's always going to be on the field, usually. It'll tell you how many simple objects you have. What is a simple object? A simple object is something that is, it's a attribute you can select for certain structures. So,
Like, fatty, fat, fuck, fat.
huh?
What the fuck?
Someone's eating in the mic.
Oh yeah, someone has eaten the mic. It's pretty annoying. A simple object is usually going to be colored gray, and it's always going to be in the special states. So a simple object, from the description, it will behave like a map object. So when you're in Zeus mode, you cannot delete this. This applies to vehicles too. If you apply this to a vehicle, it'll be stuck in whatever animation it is, and you can't delete it. So I accidentally messed up last stop, and I accidentally made a scorpion and a couple trucks simple objects. And you can interact with them, and the scorpion was stuck in a firing animation. So usually what you'd use simple objects for is just detail items. This also applies to doors or interactable objects. So if I put a door that can open as a simple object, it's not going to be able to open anymore, because it cancels out any sort of interactable nature of it. But
Yeah, ladders as well, stuff
Yeah,
like that.
ladders.
Turrets too, right?
Turrets, yep.
Yeah.
They're technically vehicles.
Essentially, it becomes a map object. It's like a rock or a tree on the map.
basically, but it saves on performance quite a lot.
It does increase the size of the file, but that's all it does.
Yeah, and that's not bad. I mean, people can download.
I mean,
it.
I've played on ops, and I think Q was there too. We played on an op that was like 27 megabytes large,
That sounds about right.
and then like another one that was like 80 something, and that was the largest file I've ever played on. I've never seen the 19th go past like 8
4
megabytes.
5.
Well, in the past, I used to make huge ops. That's why nowadays it's kind of, our ops have gotten smaller
They have,
and we're struggling.
and that's why I'm doing this mission team thing because our mission team is very small, if any at all. It's like 1 to 2 people maybe a week that work on it. I don't really have the time to work on it. I mean, I can, but I'll do it last minute and it'll look bad, usually, if I need to. But that's that. The rest of the stuff in scenario you don't really need to worry about. Yeah, you don't really need to worry about these 3. Edits, you don't really need to worry about this. I mean, you could. I just prefer to do it on the toolbar here. It's much better. The view, nothing really here that you need that you can't do with your keyboard. Attributes, this one's pretty important. The only ones you'll ever need to touch are environment and multiplayer. So environment's pretty simple. So if you guys remember the first stop, it was a little dark and it was quite foggy. So what you can do with this, you just set up the mission. You can set a date. You can set up what phase the moon is in. It'll tell you which one is a full moon and it'll tell you which one is a new moon. So Saturday is a new moon, Sunday is a full moon. And it'll do that for every month. And every time you click a different month, it's,
Different season on Earth.
Yep. So daytime is going to be a lot longer in July compared to December. Pretty simple. Time multiplier. You can decide how fast the time's going. 0.1 just makes it paused, as what I usually use sometimes. But you can also keep it on. Weather forecast. You can set what time the changes take effect. So start and forecast. So this goes back to that. This is how long it takes to switch from the start to the forecasted amount. So if I have the overcast set to 20, it's going to look, not that bad. It's going to be like a little cloudy. But about 30 minutes into the op, if I set it to this, it's going to try and change to 60%. And it'll be a lot cloudier.
But you gotta take into effect the amount of time you're getting on to prep as well, because
Yes.
Kong likes to get on like almost an hour and 30,
I
almost
do.
2 hours early.
I do. Yeah, you gotta take that in effect. You can also just change it mid-mission, but it's kind of weird. But that's like a Zeus thing. Fog start, same thing. Fog forecast, same thing. The decay and the base for fog are pretty simple. Decay just means it's gonna be a lot fucking super sharp. And then the base is, I think, how far away? Oh, no, it's the fog layer. Height. So you can play around with it, whichever way it looks good. Takes a lot of playing around with. Rain, this one's pretty simple. I want it to be raining. Rain start, rain forecast. Same thing for lightning, same thing for waves, same thing for wind. Don't use this one. Visual settings does nothing. Wind is quite nice. Usually it's just a very small number, and gusts is also at 0%. So I usually like to do, like, I don't know, 30 and then 50 or something. The wind is quite nice in ops, because it actually allows, like, smoke to billow certain directions or something.
It also pushes all the trees.
It does. It's quite nice. Nobody really uses it. I like to use it. I recommend it. Multiplayer. So this one's pretty important. So this one is how you'll set up the multiplayer settings, and it's quite simple. It's 4 settings. So the first thing you always do is, well, let me set it up how it usually is. Usually it is like this, I think. This is what it'll look like when
User
you
left
first do
your
it.
channel.
The enable AI will be enabled,
User
and
joined
the
your channel.
respawn will be disabled. So the enable AI, what that means is, since we have a spawn composition with everybody, there's about 80 dudes just kind of sitting around in the middle of nowhere. If you enable AI, all those dudes are going to be like actual dudes in the middle of somewhere. When you uncheck this, it'll only spawn us like when we, take the slot and spawn in. If we enable AI, all of our slots are going to be AI until we, get into the slot ourselves. It's very bad, so always make sure that is disabled. When it comes to respawn, you're always going to do respawn on custom position. You're going to, this one is usually unselected as well. You'll do select respawn position.
And show respawn counter.
And that one. And then you're going to set the respawn delay to Clover's favorite, 7 seconds.
By the way, he's moving the bar, but you can just change the numbers.
Or you can be a man,
themselves.
and move the bar. But that's it. It's just those 4. Or 5. Yeah. Enable AI, respawn in custom position, select respawn position, show respawn counter, and respawn delay does 7 seconds. And that's all you need to do here. And that's how you set up our multiplayer settings. The rest is handled by the server.
There's another thing you might want to consider changing in the future if you hit cancel here.
What?
Go to attributes, go to general. In this tab, if you click on, go down. Okay, there we go. MISC, right there. It's already got it open. Independent allegiances.
Oh, yeah, you can
If
do
you ever want to
this.
mess with that for like a campaign setting or something that you guys might be building on your own, if you want to use 3 factions, since the game gives us 3 factions, Blue 4, Op 4, and Independent, and then Civilian, but they don't fight. This is where you fuck with it. You can, Independence isn't shown there, but it is a tab for them to show how Independence reacts towards those 2 factions. So you can always change how Independence feels about Blue 4 and Op 4 here.
This is usually just for innies. We usually use this for innies, I think.
Yeah, we've just before I left mission, or not really left, but like took a huge step back. I started transitioning all the innies from Op 4 to Independent.
Yeah.
So that if we ever wanted to, we can have 3-way fights.
3-way.
That's how
Hell
you do
yeah.
that. Tools. I don't use anything here. You got Deformer now. I haven't used it yet. Clover uses it all the time.
I haven't used it in the 19, so we would avoid the blame of Deformer causing the ops to go down. And
Wait, we're using Deformer again?
we've had it,
We haven't used it yet.
but we haven't used it. Yeah.
I thought we did some testing on that and determined it did cause some, but not the entire bit of it.
Other units.
I don't believe
All
it
units.
Because
Local units.
I mean, the only thing they've said with other
Well,
units about it is, hey, does your unit use it? Yeah, we do. Do you guys have problems? Yeah, we do. It's like,
Alright.
like, what is that answer?
Yeah, hold on, nothing.
Okay, let's get the rest of this down.
I do
so
have a
we can
question
talk.
about objects on this.
Sure.
Yeah. What's the difference between disabling simulation and making it a simple object? I used to just always disable simulation.
I think when you just disable simulation,
So, disabled simulation. Let's use for example, the Covenant Barrier.
yes.
Yeah.
It's like the one from Halo 3. If you disabled the simulation on that, AI will fight right through it. They won't be able to shoot through it, but they'll have they don't know it's there.
Okay.
They don't
That's what I was
register it. So disabled simulation shows the little red mark on the bottom of the object icon.
Yeah.
So like let's just show everyone here real quick. So yeah, that's what it looks like. Has a little red square.
Kind of hard to see.
What that does, pretty much it fixes it in its current position. That thing won't move. No one can move it. You can crash a car into it. It'll stay put. However, AI, I did testing with this with an op because I wanted to look into, because I would use it a lot, and I wanted to look in. Man, these elites just keep like running right through them. I wonder what's causing that. And I went testing for a little while. I noticed every time I did that, disable the simulation, elites had such an easy time running right through it.
They can actually like phase through it.
Yeah, they'll
Yep.
phase
Mhm.
right through it a lot easier. Like AI will
Oh.
do that on its own if it has no other choice.
Yeah.
They do that with buildings all the time.
But since
but-
they don't even know it's there, they just don't
but
even try to
yeah.
go around. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, but if you leave it normal or simple, I think simple is okay. They will consider it an object in the way, and they will move around it.
I know you can still like walk on it either way, but
Yeah, that's that.
So what
I
about-
do use simulation sometimes. Like if you're making a wreck and it
Yeah,
requires a
good for
vehicle,
this.
because we don't have a lot of wrecks. The wreck tab kind of sucks ass. Because they're all fucking shit brown. That's for everything. It's all shit brown and it looks really bad. So if you want to use a wreck like a vehicle, so this is an actual vehicle. It's in the 19th tab. Longsword. So since this is a vehicle, if you want to edit it, you have to disable its simulation. Because if you don't, it's going to blow up or fly away. And by fly away, I mean it's going to jump somewhere 12 kilometers that way. So that's how I was able to use the longsword. You just disable the simulation, and then you can make into whatever you want. But what was your other question?
what do you recommend for like placing down the big tyrant turrets and stuff for like making them not flip out when you walk on them and stuff?
Clover has
I
a
just
method
leave
for
them
doing
as-
that.
I
Leave
leave
them
them
as
as
is?
is. Yeah, because
Okay.
that's how that's the only way they're gonna be able to shoot back.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I couldn't
Because
remember
if you
for
do,
sure.
if you turn them into simple or
They
disable
won't be able to
simulation,
turn.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're just there.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
won't show themselves taking damage, but sometimes objects do still take damage. And when you turn back the simulation, they just instantly die sometimes.
User in your
But
channel timed out.
one thing I do is I take a Covenant platform. It's just a little hexagon, or
Mhm.
rectangle platform that they have. I think it might be in the other tab. Yeah, that one. And then
Oh yeah.
I just put the tyrant on top of that. I lift it like half a meter off the ground, a meter off the ground, and I put the tyrant on top of that. And that's how I keep the tyrant from being like on uneven ground. It like keeps it propped up a little bit, leveled.
Yeah.
A lot more leveled.
Yeah, because I know at times when I was placing turrets, I would place them in editor a bit above the ground so that I wouldn't risk them phasing in and blowing up, but then they drop and move.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that. And then you get your settings tab. I don't think you ever have to use that. You get your play tab. So if you ever want to test it, what it's like in multiplayer, just hit play in multiplayer, and then press OK, select a slot, and then just go about the normal way of doing it. It'll just start a little game up. If you have a spawn composition down, it'll use that. So only do the play in multiplayer if you have the spawn comp down. If you don't have the spawn comp down, what you can do is if you need a quick way to check something in Zeus mode, what I personally do is I just place a dude down. So like, I don't know, this retard. And then you can go to Systems, Zeus, Game Master, double click on it, default add-ons to including unofficial ones. And now you get a quick Zeus mode, you can just play with your dude. Or, you can do another way. It's somewhere in your settings, like your actual just your add-on options. And I think it is in Zeus Enhanced. You can
User
just
joined
give
your
yourself
channel.
Zeus if you select a certain hotkey.
No, it's not this. It's
Is
Asus.
it- yeah.
Ace
'cause,
Zeus. I couldn't remember which one it was.
It's the last one for Ace. There you go. Create Zeus
There we go.
menu.
Yeah, so what you can do with
User
this
disconnected from your
is
channel.
you can just play as a dude. How you do that, you just right click on the guy and get play as the character. And when you spawn in, you won't have Zeus mode, but whatever you set the keybind to, it'll just give you Zeus mode. So
You can just Ace interact and give yourself Zeus.
that's you. Need available for everyone, available for the host, whichever one
Yeah,
you want.
available for the host is the one you want.
Whichever way you want to do it, that's how you can do stuff. Like you just want to check it in Zeus mode, how everything's going, how everything's working. It's also very nice if, you know, say you're doing what I did, and I disabled the simulation on this longsword, or let's say these scorpions, and I wanted to make sure these things weren't going to fly off into the distance. You know, you just spawn in Zeus mode, check if everything's working, and then you can get back to work. Very simple.
Some of the comps you guys might grab from me have things that are scaled up. I didn't. So they require you put down a another object, or in this case, I normally just use a helipad, an invisible one, and I name its variable name in all lowercase test, and then hit OK. That's how you get the scaled objects to work for some of the comps you might end up getting from me.
Yeah, so like a good
If any of
example
you download them.
is these tire tracks. These tire tracks are not scorpion size usually. They are usually this size. So when you want to scale objects, you can't just do scale. So you'll see my little code up there. But you'll copy this from Clover, and all you have to do is change this number right here to whatever you want your scale to be. And it's that simple. And then you can just place it around. You can copy paste it, and it'll keep the code. Very simple. Now with the helipad Clover was talking about, so you only have to do this once. And whenever you want to have a scaled object, that variable name right here, this test, is going to call this. You can make it any object, but I recommend doing a helipad invisible, so it's just not, visible on the map. You just go into here, variable name, underscore test, or not underscore, but lowercase test, and now, well, I already have one down, but it'll just, usually just place itself. That's all you have to do. You just place one down, call it test, and you're done. Now you can scale objects. Just remember to change this number for whatever scale it is. So if I have a 3 here, I don't remember which one it was, Clover. I think it just follows whatever is in the box. So if you have scale 4 on this in the Eden editor, it'll look really big. But then when you get in game, it's going to scale to 2.8. So yeah.
Whatever's in that init box is what you're getting.
Yeah. So the scale is really just for you to see in Eden. Just keep that in mind when you're making stuff.
As brought to you by Zeus Enhance, or no, not Zeus Enhance, 3D Editor, because that is not a normal thing that you could see in vanilla editor.
I think that does the top tab. Now we're on to the simple stuff. You got same stuff as usual. New, open, save, publish to Steam, if you ever want to do that for some reason. The undo tab. So, I'm pretty unhappy with what I just did to that scorpion. Wherever it is. Right here. So I don't like the size of that. What you can do is it's Control Z, but I like to just click the thing up here. Is you can undo all the changes you did until it is perfect again. Very simple. Or you can redo it. So maybe I did like the track being super big. Pretty simple. Then you got your widgets. So this is very, 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 very important. All the widgets from here to here. So no widget just means you have no widget. Translation widget just means you can move stuff around. So if you have no widget on, you can just move stuff like normal. If you have translation widget, when you click it, you'll have 3 dimensions you can move it in. This is a what is it? It is a decal, and decals cannot move up, but they can move like side to side. So I better repeat this. Then you get your rotation widget. When you click this, now you have 3 dimensions, but in different directions. So I want it to be like this. Very simple. Then you get your area scaling widget. I don't know if it'll work on this pod. You can just do scale, in my opinion. It's better. Then you got area widget. I don't use this one. I don't know what this one does. But if you ever want to quickly access these, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll usually just need the first 3. So if you want to quickly move stuff around, like I don't like the scorpion turret the way it is, you can go to 3, move this around, 2, move that, move this, go back to 3. You can go to 1 for some reason if you want to, and you can free move it. Go back to 3, go back to 2. Very simple. Very fast, very efficient. Now these ones are pretty important. So with the first thing I do when I start up my game is I set these 3 to, I set the globe to the box. I make sure this is vertical mode, so like straight across. Make sure it's not on this one with the little squiggle. And I'm pretty sure, yeah. And these 2 arrows facing away from each other. If you have these arrows facing inwards, I cannot move an object down into the earth. It's always going to stop when it hits a surface. If you have that facing outwards, you can freely move it in and out of the map, however you want. Very useful for wrecks or buildings that are getting logged and stuff. Vertical mode, I think this one just follows the terrain. We'll always try to follow the terrain. This one also prevents you from doing it, so I recommend just keeping it on. Very simple. And then you got these 3, very important as well. This is the translation grid, rotation grid, and the area scaling grid. You already saw all 3 of these. But what you can do with these is these little tabs next to them. So when I usually move an object, it'll move, right now it's set to 1. So I can move it very slowly, 1 degree, every time I move my mouse. However, I'm not that happy with that. So for my rotation grid, I want it to move 45. And for my translation grid, I want it to move, I don't know, let's go with 8. So now, when I move it, it's going to move in whatever I set it. My favorite to do for rotation is 45. 45 or 1. 1 is very accurate, but with 45, you can just make stuff very easy. It's very handy for making bases like this, because you can just copy down a wall, copy down another wall, move it, rotate, and it's already 45 degrees. Now the moving one, I don't really like the moving one that much. I'll just keep that to 1. If you feel like that's not accurate enough, you can also go down. I'm also a big fan of the smallest one, 125, because this one's very accurate. Another thing, you don't have to use the arrows all the time for moving stuff up and down. You can also just do Alt, left click, and then drag up or down. But you can use the blue arrows if you want to, whichever one you want. That's all your widgets. Very simple. These ones you don't really need to worry about. And that is that for the toolbar. Now we're on to section 2. Placing stuff in Eden, and what not to do when placing stuff in Eden. So I want to go over some comps real fast. So this airfield is pretty massive. This is what I would consider on the large end for an objective. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of objects here, and the more objects you add, the laggier an area is going to get, no matter what. It might be small increments, but increments are increments nonetheless. But sometimes you can get away with it. Like the way I do my comps is I try to do a lot with a little. So this base has maybe 20, 30, I don't know, 20 something objects total. Somebody I saw do something yesterday had a comp they got off the workshop. Actually, I'm just going to load the map. It's something.
It might be the one that I passed around that has a shit ton.
We'll see.
Yeah, Gek is infamous for just putting a lot of shit inside of each other.
Yeah, and you need
Oh,
to watch
wow.
out for that. It's pretty bad.
Like I use some of his stuff, but usually I rework some of his stuff as well.
Yeah, I delete some of it. Whatnot.
You see my frames are fucking dropping. So this was last time. This was the ODST op.
Okay.
I had this. So when I had the merge thing, I was working on like 2 of these rectangles. Bravo was working on one of these spires, and some other stuff. And it's very useful using the merge tool because then everybody can work on the mission at the same time. If you're not using the merge tool, you can all work on the mission one at a time because you'd have to pass the file around and everything. But an example of a bad comp, in my opinion, would be these.
Oh.
So
Oh, I haven't
this,
seen those.
so this one's pretty bad, right? I mean, it's got a good bit of objects. I'm not a big fan of it, but this piece of shit right here,
Oh,
is
shit.
it's got a lot of objects. So the last op had like a statistic count of like 2K objects. This one has 4K.
Wow.
A marginal increase, you could say. And I'm not trying to blame them, but these comps right here eat up a lot. Now, was the app playable? Yes. Was it because we only had one server running? Maybe. But generally, when you're making comps, try not to make them like this. Try not to add a shit ton of objects just to add them. Like, this guy added like 50,000 fucking walls just to make a wall. Or this abomination. Each one of these is a 400 pipe. And he did all that just to make this silly little pipe on the side. Oh, if you ever want to do this, just press backspace. And you can get rid of all the objects on your screen. It's the same thing for Zeus mode. Just press backspace and you have a clear vision of what you're working with. Generally, don't make your comps like this. Very bad. This was the spire I worked on. I worked on this spire, and I worked on this spire. So this one has a bit more objects, but you can see this is also about 20 objects, 30 objects for the Covenant side. And I think most of these are simple objects, but I did make one mistake. And that mistake is the Spire Shield. So if you remember how I said simple objects can't be edited in Zeus, in this op, the players were supposed to disable the shields, but I accidentally made them all simple objects. So I couldn't have them disabled. It was super weird, and I had to like change up the intel, like disable gravity platforms or something. You guys probably saw. So try not to make that mistake. Just keep in mind for stuff
Fuck
that
is
you want
honking?
to be interactable. But yeah, this is a big difference. So you can do a lot with a little. You just need to have like some creativity. Feel free to have open spaces too. I recommend taking inspiration from the Halo games, like Halo 2, 3. CE has some good examples. Halo Wars has some good examples. Be creative with it too. You can do a lot. Like this is a nice little square base, very simple. And you got something like this little mishmash of bullshit. You can be creative with it. It doesn't always have to be the same thing copy pasted. So I made these 2 spires very different than the others. Another thing I really, really, really don't like. So a lot of these things here are comps, and that's fine. But the problem is the comps have a lot. So another thing is vanilla comps. Not this one. This thing.
Okay.
Oh, I deleted it already. So before I changed this, there was a whole. There had to be like 200 objects here, or 300 maybe. There was a row of bushes on the front of this trench. There was a row of trees behind this trench, and then I think there was a final row of bushes alongside the wall. Then there was like 3 camo nets. There was a rifle, a Gatorade bottle, fucking radio, piss station, uh, GPS, computers, all sorts of bullshit. And I could tell immediately this was a vanilla composition because it still had an MX rifle sitting on the side and a vanilla pistol. If you're going to use vanilla comps, make them look good, and try not to use the ones that have a lot of objects. This is very dumbed down. I've fixed a lot of it, but this amount of objects for such a small area that people for the most part would not ever even see, let alone interact with. It's not good. If you're gonna do big object counts, do it for something the players will see or interact with. Like this is a pretty good amount of objects, but this is fine comparatively, because players are going to interact with this. They're going to see this. This is going to be something that's like, you know, that's seen and heard. This is almost the same amount of objects, well, before the change, but nobody saw this. I think maybe 2 people saw this. And look at this. This is 8 objects. 8 objects here, just for battery packs. It's ridiculous. Very bad. Don't use vanilla comps. They usually have a bunch of bullshit like this. That's my little tirade aside. I was talking about the fob earlier. I don't remember what I was talking about the fob, but if you can make vehicles simple objects, but if you do, like I said earlier, it'll mess them up. You can't interact with them. This cannon will be stuck in a firing animation, so it'll have like the fire coming out of the barrel, but it'll never leave. It's kind of just stuck there. So don't make vehicle simple objects like I did. Again, this base is very small compared to the other comps. You can do a lot with a little. Like this just has a couple walls, a couple buildings, a shed, and some vehicles, and a statue. And it looks like a full base. And you don't really need to add much. Some people like to go crazy and add like a billion little details in here. Like a little camera studio over here, a little briefing room in here, a bunch of bullshit in all the corners that nobody's really going to see. Do a lot with a little is what I'm trying to say. You don't want to have too many objects for an area. We're trying to maximize frames while still trying to provide a good op. What was my next thing? Oh, here we go. This is one of the bad examples I was talking about. So this is another composition that got off the workshop. Before I changed this had about the same. It had about 50, 60 extra objects on top of it. And there's a whole lot of bullshit here. Same thing as before. Little rocks, little decals that most people aren't going to see. Each one of these windows had like 2 or 3 objects. They were like boarded up or something, like this. It had a whole bunch of shit in it. There's sandbags and everything. There's a whole bunch of crates. My favorite part was there was a bunch of wood planks. Not these, obviously, because these are boxes. But it looked exactly like this. And there was a single wood plank about this size spread across almost the entire roof. And that was about... Oh, here they are, right here. There was about, I want to say, 20, 30 of them. And I'm going to tell you, for the second op, and the ODST op, I guarantee you little to no people saw this building. Yet it's taking up all this space because it has so many objects. And it has a bunch of shit. I don't know what it's doing. It is... think it has dynamic simulation on. That's what that blue circle means, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people. Speaking of dynamic simulation, um, a lot of people think it's a good idea to use that on AI, and there is a way to do it. I'm not too familiar with it, but um, essentially, in the past, people have kind of relied on it for an op, for like, let's say the first objective. Um, there's a setting, which I'm sure if I took the time to look for it, that you have to alter. Um, dynamic simulation, they relied on it pretty much to reduce some of the frames. So, like, for an example, if we're attacking this little hut there that he showed, and there were like 20 AI there with dynamic simulation on, they're not really moving around. They're kind of like still. You can shoot them from like 800 meters out. Nothing will affect them because whatever setting it is that needs to be located, might have it set to like at 100 meters, they'll become uh, killable and they'll start reacting to everything around them. It keeps things pretty much inactive until players are close enough.
Hmm. I don't recommend it for AI. It's not. I don't know. I don't think it's good. Some more small examples. So a lot of the time, a lot of players will ask for stuff like this. But let's say our main objective is the spires, right? These spires here. Usually, what would happen with a mission builder is they'll set up these objectives and only these objectives. So you're walking around the map, there's nothing there, and you're like, what the hell? Where's all the in-between stuff? So what I tried to do with this op was experiment with it a little bit. So I actually gave him, I made him like little mini objectives so the mission makers would actually like focus on doing it. But if I didn't have these boxes here, and I didn't tell people to specifically do this, something you can do, you have to use your brain a little bit. I know, crazy work. But let's say the fob is right here, and let's say the spire is right here. What you can do is you can try and predict how the players are going to react, like where they're going to go, what roads they're going to take, and you can put stuff on their route. So if I didn't have these objectives here, I would maybe place like stuff like this, some mini roadblocks, because this is just 4 objects, right? It adds a lot to the scenery, and it's like so little on object count. You don't have to go crazy with it. Like I just have a couple barriers, a little antenna, and a watchtower. And it's the same, going all the way up the road. Maybe I add some bigger stuff. Maybe I modify an area we fought in before. Like you guys might have seen this during Op 2. We saved some Marines here. But in Op like 4.5, which was or 5.5, whichever one we just did, the Covenant have set up shop here. And it doesn't take much to change this area into a Covenant area. This is, what, 3, 6, 9, 12. This is like, what, 12 Covenant objects? Yet now, it looks like it's firmly under Covenant control. It's very simple to do little stuff like that. And I'll tell you, the little stuff matters. But not the little stuff, as in adding 50 details here. Like 20 guns leaning up against this thing, or like a little radio station right here, a little... a deck of cards up here. You don't need to add silly little stuff like that. Like I was saying, do a lot with Whittle. Like this. And when you're making stuff, don't make it all look the same. Like each one of these areas are very different than the other. Like this area has a crash, and like just a very minimal amount of barriers. This place has a watchtower, minimal. This place has a good couple spread out, and a watchtower. This place has a bigger, it's like a little mini fob, I like to call this thing. It's a Tyrant base, but I like to just use it as a fob. It's very nice to use as one. And because I'll show you right now, but our Covenant object count is lacking. This is the entirety of what we have for Covenant objects. And like 6 of these are lights. So our object count is pretty minimal. So you have to do a lot with a little. Little differences to what you could do in ops is sometimes I like to place vehicles around. If I know players that want to get shit on, or they don't have vehicles to start with, you can place vehicles around in nice little spots like this, like areas they're going to take or areas they're going to pass. And it's a nice little reward for the players if they manage to take an area like this. Or I can set up as like a little boss area. They fight a good amount of dudes or like some ultras or something, and they get a reward out of it. It's very nice. But yeah, you can do a lot setting up different areas. Or stuff like this. If I told you to make like a bunch of Covenant objects, something you can do is add another little area like this. Again, this is just another set piece. It's nice to have set pieces, especially when they're low object count. Like this tells a nice little story while only being like 7 objects. There's another one back here, tells a nice little story, only being like 4 or 5 objects. Like this whole police barricade right here. Like 4 objects, and you have optional vehicles for the players, and you have a nice little story like, why are they guarding this place? But yeah, you add stuff along the route. Not a lot, just enough. And then when like the main objectives, you can do a lot more. You can set up walls, you can set up all this stuff, you can have a higher object count, you can do a lot more with it. Pretty simple. I think I've gone over everything, but copy pasting. Copy pasting is very useful. So a lot of these areas I can set up really fast. Like, this looks like a lot of work, but it's not. So like, let's say for these craters, I want to copy paste these. You can press Control C, Control V, copy it. You can hard copy it, which is Control Shift C and Control Shift V, and that'll copy it right on top of where it was, and then you can move it exactly. This is very nice if you're doing like a wall. So like this.
Yeah.
If I Control Shift C, Control Shift V, it'll spawn exactly on top of that, and then I can just use the move arrow and get it exactly where I want it. Again, you have your widgets. 1 is no widget, 2 is your translation widget, which is your move around one, and then 3 is your rotation one. Very nifty. You can set up your rotation widgets here, how much they'll do. I recommend keeping the translation one very small, like 1 or 0.125. Your rotation one can be, 45, 15, or 5, whichever one you're working with. You can also set it to 1 if you need something very specific. But having a higher rotation just makes it easier, I think, to make like bases and stuff. Like if I'm trying to do this, I have to count out like 45. Or I could just set this to 45. And boom, it's already at 45. But if I need to make a very, small change, it's going to keep going 45. So, just play around with it. You can also toggle it and untoggle it. Untoggled, it's going to be very weird. It's going to go like by the points. So you can do like ultra precise stuff with this. But I generally like to keep it on, 1 or 45. I think that's it, if I'm not forgetting anything, Clover. If you guys want, you can practice like making a little base like this. It doesn't have to be Covenant, it can be human. Covenant gets you some good practice because you're working with like 4 or 5 objects, trying to make a big fob. If you want to know how to do certain stuff like these wrecks, I'll give a little brief or a little show. So how I do my wrecks is I like to start off with the actual wreck itself. Optray just released a new wreck, and it is amazing. Because the difference between this and all the other Pelican wrecks is this one is not shithole brown. It actually has textures, and it's very cool. So let's say I want a Pelican wreck, and I want it, I don't know. I want to imagine they crashed, and they had like a pretty bad landing. So let's say like this. Make sure it's on the ground. Maybe move it down like a point or 2. Turn my stuff on. Then I'll do my craters. And what I like to use for craters, like if you're doing an airplane wreck, is I like to use either Airplane Crater V2 or airplane crater 1. I like to do 1 if it's like a grassland area. I like to do 2 if it's like a more of a rocky asphalt area or concrete area. And then you can set up your first one. I don't know, something like that. Use the copy paste tool, get it looking how you want. Maybe play around with it so it looks different. I don't know, maybe they had a little curve when they crashed. I'd say maybe that's far out. It's fine. Maybe you place a little small crater here for the engine. And then fall as hard. And then I like to use the small ones, these small craters, for the wings. So you can do something like this. Like if it fell at that angle, I'd say something like... I don't know, something like that. Maybe 3 of them would be good. Have them a little bit more in each other. And then for my debris, I like to use the patches. These are decals. They're in the graffiti tab. You have a lot of them. I like to use Dirt Patch 5. I think it looks the best. I mean, you got other dirt patches, but they look kind of, I don't know, weird to me. I think 5 looks the best for wrecks. So I'll place like a couple of these around. By a couple, I mean a good bit. Can just show something crashed here. Place them along the craters. Try to keep the object count low by spacing them out a little bit. We move these in a little bit more so it doesn't look as obvious. And then you can use the other crater, which is the decal crater. This one, where an explosion happens. Because I really like to use this one for the engine right here. Because, I don't know, I just think it looks better. I like to imagine the engine was still firing off when it crashed or something. Put a little crater right there. Try and put this back without getting it over. I don't know, maybe put another crater right here. Maybe it burned out or something. Or maybe I want to put it next to this engine. Something like that. You're pretty much done at that point. You can do a few extra details. Maybe they survived the landing, and maybe they're adding some sandbags. This is how I do my trenches as well. I like to do the sandbags long. I'll show you a nice little trick. So sometimes when you're placing stuff, like an example. Sometimes your stuff will be like crooked. So let's say theoretically I place this and it was like crooked like this. Something you can do to fix them is you just go into this, you double click on it. And you can go right here to the rotation and reset it. Or you can go to the position. I think it's position. No. This one? Yes, that one. You go in there and reset it, and now it's perfectly, flat and aligned. And then you can turn it how you need to. Play with that a little bit, make it look good. Having it be all the way out might not look all that cool. Like having it all the way out like this looks kind of busted. Having a couple sandbags on top of the berm looks a lot better, in my opinion. And then if you're feeling lazy, copy paste. You can do it like that, or you can just shift click. I don't know, something like this. I'm gonna get real precise with it. You can do the blue arrow. And then some more details you can add to a crash site if you're feeling like really nifty. And look at what just happened. This guy's a player. Remember that key detail? Something I could do is I could put this guy's health to 0. And we'll pretend he's a 19th Marine. I'm gonna set him to crawling.
I think you hit cancel when you did his health.
Oh, whoops. I don't know, something like that. Then you can make some like little set pieces like, oh man, something bad happened here. Is there any questions? I haven't heard a lot of questions. From anybody?
Self-explained. Heard you explain it pretty good.
It's pretty simple. It's not difficult whatsoever. It's just kind of time consuming sometimes. It depends. If you're all working together on an op, which I try to have my mission team do when they're all free, it's very simple, and all you have to do is set up like one area. Like this one, for example, I only had to set up like 2 areas. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
Mission team?
Something about mission team. This is where I record all my videos, by the way. I have goldfish memory.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember. I was making a pretty good point about something, but whatever. Anyways, so you can do something like this. Another little cool detail. You just have a guy, maybe he survived the crash, crawled over here and he died. Key detail here is putting his health to 0. So when he spawns in, he spawns dead. You can also take away parts of his kit or whatever you need to do. If you want to do something like this, so how this is set up is... Oh my god. Is it's just a bunch of objects kind of like tangled together with something hiding it, like these craters right here. So I'll give you a brief warning right now. These scorpion turrets are simulated objects. So you will always, always, always have to turn their simulation off, or they will fly. They will fly away. So how I did this was I just placed a normal scorpion wreck. I place a crater underneath. Spawn another crater. I put my first scorpion turret down, either like that, or I put the first one on top. It doesn't matter which order you do it in. This looks pretty bad until the pod is added. I add my second scorpion turret, how I want it to look in the finished product. The barrel looks like it's, I don't know, somewhat aligned. And then you put the pod down. And the pod will hide most
User
of
joined your
the
channel.
fluff. So now you have a nice looking wreck that everybody can enjoy. And I think the pod might be, like I said, always hop into Zeus mode to check your stuff. Some objects have simulation and they'll fly around if they're in the ground. But yeah, just, you know, use your brain a little. Like if you had scorpion wrecks, obviously they would have tread marks. But obviously you don't want to place like 60,000 of them. So like the way I set it up here was I just had them over the concrete areas. When it comes to making human bases, like I was saying with the fob, don't go too crazy. Same thing for Covenant bases. Do a lot with a little. If you want to go ahead and try out making a base, go for it. Or if any of you want to join mission team, just at me in training or something, or DM me, and I'll get you tagged up for it.
I'm not interested.
That's tragic. Oh, here's a good example of a Covenant object. I'm not saying that because I made it. But,
But he made it.
yeah, I made it. But, so something like this, compared to the super fucking gigabase, the giga shits. So these are like maybe pushing the hundreds, maybe 200 objects. And this is pushing like maybe 50, maybe 60, maybe 50. And I feel like you get a lot more detail with this. And honestly, the biggest thing about this that was object count was I was trying to make pipes. So I just added a bunch of walls together in a 4 pattern. I don't know how it looked. I was kind of happy with them. I honestly could have just kept the walls here, but again, this goes into what I was saying. Do a lot with a little.
If you ever need to measure anything, like, you know, if you want to measure the distance between objectives or like the size of a base, yeah, you've got a measurement tool here. You just click it on the ground and then click it on the ground of where you want to go. And it tells you at the top. If you do it between two objects, it gives you the center of both those objects. So like, if you do it from, yep, there, and then another object, it's the distance between those two.
Do you have any other things, Clover? I feel like I forgot something. I don't think I did, but I might have.
How many people actually plan on, like,
User
building
left your
missions?
channel.
I'd
Yeah.
like to.
I wouldn't mind it if I actually have the free time, but given how everything is, I don't know how often.
Let me do
Well,
a
you
quick...
can always do side things.
Yeah,
like,
let
you don't have to
me-
do it for the main group.
Oh,
you can
yeah.
just
Yeah.
you can just say, hey, this Tuesday, if like 15 people or however many want to show up, just reserve the
5.
server and then say, hey, I built a little something. This is what we're doing. But if you guys want to learn how to set up ODST pods, I can show you. So it's simple. Some people in the past thought it was just dropping the ODST pod and then voila, it's done. but it's not.
No, it's a,
I
I
want to
was
preface...
about to ask about that actually.
I want to preface real fast before you go into that, Clover. When you join a mission team, it's very simple. Like I was saying, you don't have to do it every week, and you only have to use whatever free time you want to use. Like, for instance, I made a decent bit of this on Saturday, the day of the app, and it only took me like, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes to make this, like, one of the highways and, like, both these spires. Again, you can be very quick with it. It doesn't take a lot of time once you're used to the controls. And you don't have to put in so much, like, you don't have to put in hours of effort. It's just put in whatever free time you want to put into it. Save it, or save it to the mission file, and send it back for everyone else to use. Very, 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 very simple. But go ahead, Clover.
So, to do the ODST pods, you just go over to modules. Again, I'll show you here, but if you ever need help, just ask someone who knows. You...
Are you streaming, Clover?
No, yeah, I'm relying on your stream.
Oh,
when you pulled up
I
the
got
fucking
you.
Peter Griffin mask. There are two pods. There's Optrays and there's Demonics. We use Demonics because they look nicer. So that'll be DMNS HEV. It's near the top. All you gotta do is put down the module. Leave that as is. Put down the squad console launch setup. Double click that. And variable name. Yep, that one, not the top one. All you want to do is name that whatever you want. I normally just go with ODST underscore drop underscore pod. And before hitting OK,
Yeah, I think you have to have underscores.
yeah,
Or
there
can you
can't-
have spaces, right?
I don't think there can be spaces. It's either that variable name or it's the one on the top. I forget. Sometimes. I forget sometimes.
When I
So
did some
before you hit
testing,
OK,
it didn't. Oh.
alright, delete all that. 'Cause let's do it again. You have number of extra columns. What that does is it puts down an extra column of 12, because 12 is the number of pods you have per column. So if you look down, or actually it might be 6. I don't know. I don't remember. Let's put down an extra column. Let's give it 1. and then you gotta name it.
Oh yeah.
Look at that. Now there's 24 pods.
Yeah, but you see how my frame dropped? So if I do, oh, it's not popping up.
All those are controlled from the one launch. If you ever want to, you can.
Oh, there we go. So my
put
FPS is
multiple launches.
39. Looking at this, looking away from it. Oh, it's still 39. That's when I
Alright.
delete it.
It went up.
When I delete it, it goes back to 60.
Yep, that's because it's demonic stuff. Now, I've recommended this every single time. When in use, especially like during main ops. During a side op, it's nothing. Like, you got 20 people, it's nothing. But during a main op where you have 40 players on 2 servers, both on the same box, I've told every Zeus to delete those pods after ODSTs have deployed, because they do eat up frames.
That's why.
Demonic's pretty sloppy.
That's
he
why we
gets
don't
shit
use
done.
Springbox.
Yeah, he gets shit done, but a lot of his assets are just very high.
You want to see something really bad? Oh man.
For example, the Springbok. Major issue with it.
59 frames. 49 frames. 44 frames.
So if you look down very closely at the Springbok, you'll notice every fucking bolt on that is got a vert. It's not painted on there. That is extruding out from the thing. So that means all those have small little dots on them.
And there is so many vertices on these. There's so many bolts.
At least 5 or 6.
That's why his Scorpion's a lot cleaner. It's all everything you see on it. A lot of it's just painted on. There is detail to it, but a lot of, like, the other half of the detail is just painted.
So
and he
much
did pretty
nicer.
well with this. It's honestly probably the best Scorpion in Arma.
And that's why we don't use the Springbox, because these things, oh my god, they eat up frames.
We use them, just use them at like 2, because any more than that, it's kind of.
I don't even like spawning 2. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's what got.
Clover, if you don't mind me asking on the drop pod thing.
Yeah.
So when I first joined the unit, I made like a couple missions, kind of bullshitting with it, kind of getting back into it, and I got the drop pod module to work. Do you know any sort of script to make it so when you respawn, it does the module again?
What do you mean?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, like you spawn in the pods?
Yeah, because the way I have it set up is at the start of the mission, you all drop down, you do your normal stuff from there. But I was trying to figure out a way to make it from like a 1 life mission into a respawn thing, to where you have like set points to where if you respawn, you'll come down in a drop pod rather than just bloop magical reappearance sort of thing. So I was asking if you knew any way to, I guess, work that in,
Or
if
you
it is
just
a possible
spawn
thing.
in the air already dropping.
Nah, you just do a normal respawn. It doesn't actually do the drop pod entry.
Oh, like
So-
you come out of the pod that's on the ground? Is that what you mean?
Oh, like when you respawn, there is no drop pod. You just do a normal Arma respawn. I was trying to see if there was a way to just
Are you
redo
saying-
the
are you
drop
saying,
pod
like-
entry. But
And you're like back at base or something?
possibly, yeah. If there is a way to do it at multiple respawn points, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, you just set up however many respawn points you want. Under multiplayer and modules, you gone past it. You just set up respawn positions.
Yeah. But
Uh,
the way I have it set up is like it only does it once, and then afterwards it's the normal armor respawn. It doesn't do the drop pod re-entry process.
Well, you're talking about the module that, like, when the mission starts, you're in the pod and you go
Yeah.
down. Yeah, it's like a separate thing, because this you actually click on the map and drop wherever you
Yeah.
click.
Yeah,
So
this
that
relies
would
on the
kind of do the same
console.
thing. You would just have to have people know how to use the console?
This relies on the console, which is right of the screen. You just run up to it and interact with it,
Also, the
And-
thing that oh sorry,
and it lets you decide on the map. It shows you a little radius of where most people will drop within that radius. You can change a little bit of it, like deploy the shoots at 500 or 100. Um, what else? Detach shoot at 300 or 100. You know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Cool thing.
Appreciate it.
Cool thing I totally forgot to talk about. But let me find something. So this base, let's say for some reason I spawned it in, it's floating in the air, or it's like at different heights, like this, and it all just looks clunky and bad. This is an extreme example, but if you select everything you want to do it to, you right click, and you get a transform, you can snap stuff to surface. So now all that stuff just snaps to the surface, and it's perfectly aligned with the ground. Usually. Sometimes. Most times. This airfield, I don't know who made this map, but this airfield is actually not flat. Believe it or not. It
No,
may
it's
look
supposed
it may look flat, but it is not like Arma airfield flat. It is just it's shit. It's bad. I don't like this map. Cool airfield, but just not good. That was more like an extreme example. Sometimes you don't want to do it because there might be like a hill here, and I specifically need to set up something like if this hill was sloping downwards, which I think this one is. If I transform it, it's going to go back to its original position, and it might be higher than another object. So sometimes you have to do it by hand. You have to like set up its height, and it might look weird because one side might be really high in the air, and one side might be like digging in the ground a little bit. But that's fine. That's what happens when you build on sloped terrain. It's always going to look a little weird. And most of Arma's maps are sloped terrain. That's why
We
it's,
We got Deformer now.
Yeah.
We haven't used it because
because of accusations.
yeah, so I can teach everyone real quick how to use Deformer.
Oh, I actually need to learn this too.
So you start by hitting Shift Y or Shift T. Oh, okay, you already brought it up. Anyways, so before you start deforming, so there is 4 keys. All require that you hold down Control 1, 2, 3, and 4.